Time flies by, but I think it's probably a couple of years when we moved into Rise now. Absolutely love it. One of the best decisions I think we've ever made in terms of the business from a networking point of view, fintech hub, but also from a cost point of view and the facilities with the auditorium and everything else. I just think it's fantastic. What are you making of it? How's your experience bearing out?
Yeah, I mean, Rise has been somewhere I've been coming for a while, and because I've had relationships with some key people who are part of the Rise family, including Magdalena Crone and Tony,
Yeah.
who are really the lifeblood of this place, and they've created such a wonderful, welcoming environment, to support fintechs for scale and growth, and we're very lucky to have had the Rise team as early supporters of Fintech Fringe, from the very beginning. In fact, Fintech Fringe, the name was like conceived over a coffee in the cafe, just over a year ago. So they very much have been part of the DNA and helping us build the business from the very beginning.
People often use the word vibrant when they're talking about places, but it really is. For me, it is vibrant in there, particularly on a Thursday. But most of the rest of the week, it's still very buzzy. And I think some of the events are just amazing. The people that get into that building is really, really cool. Anyway, enough singing the praises of Tony and his team. He'll be basking in the glory of all of this recommendation. But a fantastic decision from our point of view. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of the wonderful podcast. I'm joined today by the wonderful Calypso Harland, which, actually, having said your name, I now need to ask. I've not come across a Calypso before. Maybe I'm showing my limited reach socially, but where does the name come from?
Calypso is actually Greek, and she's most known for her love affair with Ulysses, actually, and which had a bit of a sad ending. But basically, the gods didn't allow Ulysses to get elevated to godlike status as Calypso wanted, so they could live in an eternal life together. But yeah, it's commonly associated with lots of positive things, including dancing, drinking, and having a good time. So anyway, it's been a joyful name to be blessed with. So I'm gonna really thank my parents for that.
No, it really is. It's such a great name. It's instantly memorable. So once
I'm actually from New Zealand, so and how I ended up with a Greek name, it's
and no Greek in the family, just.
No, but very strong connection with Greece. Lots of Greek friends, and I'm there every year. So I feel like I'm a token Greek.
Yeah. Well, my story is similar with Kieron. I think my grandmother, my grandmother and my mother both wished they were Irish, but they're not. My mother claims she's Irish all the time. We're of Irish descent, so she named me Kieron, and then promptly spelt it in a way that very few people do. So everybody gets my name wrong all the time, which is fine.
Yeah.
But there we go.
Yeah.
So moving on to what you're up to. You're up to a lot. Obviously caught you at a super busy time, so super grateful for you sharing an hour, which I know you don't have at the moment to chat with us today. But just as a bit of backstory, how did you kind of get started, and was there a particular, I guess, aha moment with things like Fintech Fringe and My Forte? Just give us a quick whistle stop.
Yeah, sure. So Fintech Fringe, is a business I launched just over a year ago. Saw an opportunity, during London Tech Week to launch something to support, all the overseas fintechs that were coming into market. And I'd had a background in international expansion and supporting lots of fintechs with their growth goals into new markets. And anyway, I was cognizant of the fact that there's more overseas fintechs coming into market during London Tech Week than I think any other time during the year.
Yeah.
And London Tech Week does a really great job of talking about financial services in terms of impact on society and planet, but needling down into the detail around actually what companies are interested in when they're coming into market, and also trying to make a bit of distinction between what other players in the market do. The scale and growth piece seemed like a really interesting area that no one was tackling as a niche, kind of subject. So so we kind of carved out a bit of a a niche for ourselves in that particular area, because I think there's a lot of other companies who focus on technology and solutions and do an amazing job of it, and who champion regulatory policy and things. But that was those are things that I don't really know that much about, but I did know a lot about scale and growth. So just kind of decided to stick with what I knew and expand upon the trade missions and the knowledge bases that I'd been building for smaller cohorts of companies in the past. So, yeah.
So it's no coincidence that it's happening during London Tech Week. Obviously, that makes complete sense. Is there any formal affiliation with that, or is it less structured than that?
Yeah, we were really lucky to kind of get early support from London partners who set up London Tech Week 10 years ago, and really helped grow that into the the big event that it is now, which is organised and championed by Informa, and they saw the benefit that the Fintech Fringe program could bring to London Tech Week, and that it wasn't competing kind of content wise. So they very kindly invited us to be an official Fringe partner, for London Tech Week, and that just means we get exposure, kind of on their platforms, which is brilliant. And we've been invited to, be a Fringe partner again for a second year. So yeah, we're delighted to be able to support fintechs with a unique set of programming that no one else is doing.
And who should be coming along? What's your target audience?
So we've taken a bit of a different approach with our content programming, and we deliver half-day conferences, but really specifically geared towards specific function owners. So content geared towards marketing leaders around the topic of growth marketing, content geared towards product and tech leaders, people who are fundraising. So you can just pick and choose like the things that suit you. So, the way that it's, kind of planned out throughout the week, we've got, how many conferences do we have? We've got 6 conferences happening during the week,
Wow.
1 customer matchmaking event, and you can just pick and choose which one you want to go to. So, because there's so much cool stuff happening during London Tech Week, we don't want, people just to go and commit to our whole event, because, it's worthwhile that they get around and see a whole bunch of stuff, So, and we want to make sure that, people are just going to the content that's relevant for them.
Yeah.
So I think last year, 83% of our audience were C+ level, 50% were founder level. So, very much looking at the kind of C-suite within, scaling fintechs.
Okay, that's fantastic. And just can you share any of the topics of some of those conferences? Kind of leaping around our questions a little bit and probably putting you on the spot, but 1 or 2 of the things that we might expect.
Oh yeah, sure. So so on day 1, we are really kind of diving into scaling strategies, and very excited that we can be joined by Jordan Sinclair. He's the president of Robinhood here in the UK.
Fabulous.
And he's really got kind of one of the biggest kind of mandates for driving growth in the fintech industry.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be fascinating, hearing from him, and we've got a whole bunch of other really really fascinating people kind of joining us as well. On day 2, we're really focusing on how to supercharge sales. So how do you drive like meaningful engagements with FIs and enterprises, and giving some kind of insightful kind of knowledge about the engagement process. So we'll be joined by kind of leading banks who can talk about their procurement process and what's the best approach for companies to be able to start attracting their interest, for potential innovation partnerships. in the afternoon, and this is like super, super interesting. And we are working together with a company called Finbridge Global, who've developed an incredible assessment engine, which helps companies assess their enterprise readiness. And we kind of go through a series of questions which helps us understand how they stack up from a reg and compliance perspective, from a product and tech perspective, helps us kind of measure against all the things that FIs and enterprises are looking for in the procurement journey. And if you don't kind of, score well, in this assessment, then it's going to reduce your chances of a successful engagement. So we deliver this assessment so we can understand what are the areas that companies need to improve on, and then work with them as partners to look at how we can improve that. And that's when my forte kind of kicks into gear with our expert network. We're like, okay, where does this company need support? How, who do we know in our network that can step in and deliver that service, whether it's on the regulation compliance, whether it's on, the kind of product strategy, because we want to make sure that we're driving meaningful engagements between, fintechs and FIs and enterprises. So nobody's time's wasted, right? Next day is on product and tech, and very, very thrilled to be working with Thought Machine on this, and Travis Clark Walker, who's the CMO there, is going to be opening the day. Really exciting topic that he's actually kind of diving into, which is looking at how to build a multi-billion dollar fintech. So I'm sure lots of people are going to be interested in that. Absolutely. And then in the afternoon, it's a growth marketing kind of focus conference, ably led by Payal Raina, who's the founder of the Fintech B2B marketing community, and we've got an incredible woman from Adobe, who essentially comes from PayPal originally, and now she's heading up marketing at Adobe, and she's going to be kind of keynoting there. And the next day is all about regulation and compliance. Keynoting is Carolyn Wayman, and she used to be the former CEO of the Financial Ombudsman Service. So you may recall like that big flurry when they had like banks were kind of called out on kind of PPI. So Carolyn was very much kind of the force behind that, leading the charge, and so
she'll be fascinating.
She is going to be incredible. Yeah. So, oh my God, the more stories from that woman are going to be incredible to hear about. And but it's also, she was, in that role at a very interesting time because, the landscape, was shaped in a very kind of, permanent way, because it was all during the kind of the global pandemic. So it was a very, very impactful time, to be in that kind of role.
I mean, that kind of leads quite nicely into one of the other things I was looking to talk to and get your thoughts on, which is kind of, emerging technologies, things that are on the landscape, horizon scanning, not necessarily from a regulatory point of view, but just in a general sense. Carmen, who can't be here today, unfortunately, Carmen normally co-hosts with me, but she's in another meeting, sadly. But we're obviously co-founders of a payments business in open banking. We see open banking as being supremely disruptive as a technology. Genuinely is transforming the payments landscape, because until now, you've not really had an alternative to the method we all use for making payments, which is typically a debit or a credit card, certainly in the e-commerce environment and in retail environments and everywhere else. And now I think we've got a technology that can properly transform. I mean, are you aware of, or you got views on other technologies that you think are as disruptive, either in the fintech space or just in the tech space generally? I mean, obviously AI, I guess, but thoughts around that. What do you see as being key over the next couple of years that people should all be keeping an eye on?
Well, I guess, this week, kind of what takes, front and center stage is, ChatGPT 4.
Yeah. Again.
I know. It's very obvious to say, but
No, but it
think
was one of those things. I think it got to their 12-month, their first year, basically, anniversary. And I was thinking, that can't be a year. It just cannot be 12 months, because it felt like so much had been achieved in such a ridiculously short period of time. And it's the same again. But yeah, absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I mean, it just changes everything, So, and we're really going to be diving into that on the product and tech and kind of growth marketing kind of sessions that we're running. So there's going to be some really interesting discussions there. But I mean, just bringing voice and sight to a previously text and image based kind of platform is just transformative.
It really is.
But with it comes all sorts of kind of challenges as well. I mean, I just read that Scarlett Johansson is looking to sue ChatGPT for using her voice, which where there's been kind of parallels with the voice originated from the film Her, where Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his AI chatbot. So but I think if we sort of look past the sensationalism of this tool, I think there's remarkable opportunities to use this technology as a force for good.
Completely.
And for example, helping blind people with everyday tasks such as identifying objects, reading menus, or providing directions. This can be particularly helpful for those who need assistance in environments where visual cues are important but inaccessible. So, and just last week I was actually at the launch of Project Nemo, kind of led by the formidable Joanne Dewar, which is looking at how we develop products and services, within financial services that make things more inaccessible, because actually we are leaving a lot on the table. There's 20% of the population in the UK has some kind of accessibility issue, and accessibility isn't always visible.
Absolutely.
So I think when we look at tools like ChatGPT, it's very easy to kind of focus on the big headlines, right? But there's a lot of transformative stuff that they can do that just is a game changer for many.
Yeah, I think so. And I think in terms of, broader concepts like machine learning and using tools there around fraud detection in the payments space and so on, it is just going to revolutionize what people are doing. I mean, people have been using those for a while, but they're just going to become increasingly efficient. That's the beauty of it, without a doubt. Now, you clearly, it makes sense in terms of the businesses that you're operating, but you're clearly a networker. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, some of the names that you've managed to pull along for the event are amazing. Is that innate?
I can't take full credit for that. But a lot of that is the handiwork of Doug McKenzie and Tom, who's our head of content and programming.
Right.
So yes, credit where credit's due.
Yeah. But no, it's amazing. But that's your background, I'm guessing, the ability to open doors and.
Yeah, I guess I've always been a bit of a super connector, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like creating valuable connections between people, and I've always done that, throughout my career. It's just got my DNA, I guess. So it's nice to be able to actually translate that into a business where it's such a core theme.
I mean, Fintech Fringe seemed to grow really rapidly, very, very quickly. Unless I missed something. It seemed to be, not there, and then was suddenly attracting lots of people to the events. What was the secret behind the success and the rapid growth there?
Well, to start with, partnerships.
Right.
And we started absolutely no budget. It was, just me and the lovely Olivia Minnick. She just started a full-time job actually at MMOB, and so she was helping out, in the evenings and on the weekends. So we had no marketing budget. We were volunteering our time, for this. And yeah, so without the partners behind us, none of this would have been possible. So, forging strategic alliances with, companies like Innovate Finance, London and Partners, Level 39, Rise created by Barclays, Fintech Alliance, Tech Passport, all of those partners are absolutely critical to helping us kind of get this off the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's if I look back and say, okay, how did we really get this all rolling? Was that was a big part of it, but also I think our content programming was really zeroed in on two things. Well, actually, I guess it's kind of one thing, really. Just keeping it really practical and really pragmatic. I got sick of going along to events. We just hear a load of fluff that doesn't actually, make any difference to your business. You're like, okay, what did I learn today?
Yeah.
So having respect for people's time is really important, because there's not a lot of it, and there's a lot of challenges and other things calling for their attention, and making sure that when people come to your events, that actually they're learning something that they can practically apply in their business. And I think that really content-led approach is what kind of helped us win hearts and minds.
I think it's actionable as well. Looking at what you do, is you're coming away from that with things that you can, as you say, you can just go away and start to implement in your business, which is very, very important.
Yeah, exactly. And
sorry, going back to the kind of networking piece, the events that I've seen a couple at Rise. But how do you keep that networking piece going on after an event's finished? Have you got any tools or tricks again for money? Because you're hitting upon that. You go to something, you sit there, you listen to some great speakers. In your case, you're coming away with some actions. But how do you keep that momentum going beyond that event to the next one?
Well, yeah, really good question, Kieron. So in answer to that, I decided it would be great to build a knowledge base where we could help people connect on a continual basis, right? Because the events are really important, kind of bring people together in person. But all of our events are in London at the moment. So how does that benefit people from across the UK?
Yep.
So hopefully we'll start to do events across the UK and in collaboration with other partners, soon enough. But the platform we've built, which is called Fintech Fringe Forum, is really intended to be like a gateway into UK fintech, helping you navigate, what support is available, what organizations are doing what. We have, I think, the only UK kind of fintech events calendar, which is kind of updated with everything happening, whether it's virtual, in person, connections with experts.
Yep.
Members can connect with each other. It's free to join.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just like, having a place where we can bring everyone together under one umbrella, which is a bit like Switzerland. So, we don't have any favorites. Yeah, everyone's represented in the same way. And yeah, so that's our kind of, solution. And, hopefully we can get this right for the UK market and perfect it, and then roll that out to other, kind of major fintech hubs around the world. So, my vision is that we just create a globally connected fintech ecosystem. So wherever you go in the world, you've got family, right? Instant family.
Absolutely.
So that would be my vision for the future.
And that forum, again, just so people listening know where to find it, is that a web-based, is it an app-based platform? Again, we'll put links in the show notes and so on, but...
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, it's both.
Right.
So we've got a there's a desktop version and there's an app as well, so which is super handy.
Yep.
And both like really great user experience and super easy to kind of navigate around. So just do a search for Fintech Fringe forum in Google and it'll pop up. And there's a short little reg process you have to go through, but
No, it's
few
great.
minutes and you're in.
And I asked that question knowing the answer because I use it, and it is really good.
Oh.
Even things like the news feed on there, I find it's actually one of the nice. I'm sure there's an automated process in doing that, but it's well curated. It seems good.
Tell me about your experience. I'm so curious to hear.
I found, I think I connected probably after one of the events or joined. I think you were probably fairly early on with it at that point. I just think the introductions that you can make on there and then getting connections from other people talking about what they're doing, I think it's really, really good. But as I say, even for a news feed, for me, I can just log in there and check what's happening without looking at 25 other sources. And I find that great. And as you say, the events are excellent because, again, that seems to be really nicely curated. So I think you create something really great.
Oh, that's really, really positive to hear. I mean, listen, it's not perfect. There's lots of things we need to kind of, finesse and get right. But it's, the bones of it are there, right? And now it just needs some other brains to come in and make it better. So anyone listening, if that sounds interesting, then please get in touch.
It is one of those things when it's, a small business, you've got limited resource and there's so many things that you want to be rolling out, but you can only do them one at a time.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a tendency to try and boil the ocean, I have to admit.
Okay, changing gears a little bit. The tagline for our podcast is "Do good, do well, and be well." And the reason that we came up with that is we're trying to look at, I guess, the intersection between the first two. Sometimes there's a perceived tension between doing good and doing well. Can you be successful commercially and be, in inverted commas, philanthropic or just do the right thing? And again, with things like, greenwashing and whatever else, I think there's a degree of cynicism around those kind of concepts now. Are large corporate organizations really doing good, or are they just paying lip service to that? And then the third part is really, looking at business leaders and people like that and how they balance really crazy, hectic lives with keeping well as well. So we try and tackle all three of those. So again, your observations on any of those would be quite interesting. Is there a tension between doing good and doing well, or is it a possibility? And then secondly, and I'll just go back to the Christmas party and your incredible performance in the limbo competition, which I noticed the competitive nature as well. You were not letting that one slip away, but you clearly look after yourself. So again, just what are your thoughts and advice on people in terms of doing what you're doing? It's a crazy couple of weeks you've got now. How do you unwind? How do you manage all of that?
Oh wow, lots of questions here. Let's start first on do good, do well. Listen, it's I think we've come a long way. It's big organizations, they're like steam tankers. They take a little while to kind of turn around, and I think there is progress, but it's incremental, and it's just, you have to be cognizant that it just takes a while for a big organization that has, very ingrained kind of ways of doing things, and of course, lots of stakeholder relationships to manage. So I think the intention is there, and it's like, having had a career in tech for, like almost 30 years now, there has been a seismic shift in thinking, and that does need to be celebrated, and while we're not seeing the change that we want as quickly as we want, I think that also we haven't been demanding that change as actively, in the last 30 years as we have been in the last 5.
Yes.
So I think there's been a social awakening.
Yeah.
And lots of people really kind of driving forwards. And as technology has evolved, we've found better ways of being able to look at how we drive sustainable kind of initiatives and how we measure the impact, business decisions have on society and planet, and, so I feel comforted by the change I've seen happening, I guess, because I've been around the block for a long time and I can see over time how things are progressing. So really great to kind of see the work, with, companies like Kogo, who really kind of, shifting the needle on how we kind of, how we measure impact.
Yeah.
And so companies like that who are really kind of leading the charge, are a bastion, to all of us, to small businesses, to big businesses, and how we can do better. On a personal front, in terms of, being well, I think being well with yourself, is number one, and making sure that you're investing time in your own personal development. I, a couple of years ago, had, kind of got to the end of a tenure, with some work that I was doing, and, was incredibly washed up and, had, experienced, kind of major burnout. In fact, a couple of times, in the few years preceding. And, it really made me, take stock and understand I needed to really take time for myself, because I'm used to running at 100 million miles an hour, and I'm just like that as a person, but it's not sustainable. And, getting daily practices into life, like daily meditation, to me makes such a tremendous difference, just in how I deal with problem solving, how I relate to others, how I ensure that I'm leaning into the more empathic qualities, that we all naturally possess, but it's having an awareness of self and an awareness of others, and meditating, exercising, eating well, is tremendously important. And I just think, just trying to, be well with the world around you, I was like, be kind to others, don't be an arsehole.
No, completely.
Completely. And I think it's really what you do isn't necessarily, or like your achievements or any of those things like that aren't necessarily important. They fade over time, but people remember how you treated them, that lasts. So you've got to make sure that you're always treating people with kindness and with respect. And even when you have a disagreement, or maybe something isn't quite the way that you want it to be, it's just like, it's not the end of the world. It's just like, shouldn't be taken personally. Just always try to, be well with each other. Because we're all human beings and sensitive, and
I think there are a couple of things that really resonate in your answer to both of them. The first, going back to the doing good and doing well part, I think that you hit the nail on the head. There's this sense that because we're all in soundbite society now, and we're all looking at TikTok, we expect the same response times from corporations in trying to put in place, and it's just not realistic. So it is going to take time, and I find that really encouraging. That's kind of quite a pragmatic response that you've got. They're doing some great work, but don't expect miracles. It's not going to happen in 24 hours. It's going to take time. They're big organizations. And then listening to your comments on empathy, I think that's really important, because around that piece of how people respond to what you're saying or how you respond to them, very often you're not seeing, or most of the time, you're not seeing the whole picture. You've no idea what's going on in their home life, or, so sometimes a response that doesn't feel appropriate or normal could have all sorts of drivers behind it. I think that's really, really, really critical too. And then going back to the meditation, I find that I don't meditate. I just, maybe I didn't give it long enough. Maybe I need to go further, but I found it really, really hard. But my kind of check-in is trying to do the yoga. And I do find that great at sort of sitting on the mat and just checking in for a moment with how I'm feeling. And it's just taking that time to check in that day, as you say, and being aware of, am I feeling really burnt out? Is this cold going to turn into something else because I'm overdoing it at the moment? It's really important.
Well, yeah, I use a website called Mind Valley, which is incredible. Actually, they've got all sorts of amazing courses on there, to help with self improvement in many areas of your life, whether it's like, personal well being, looking at your career, looking at your love relationships, so on and so forth. So I found that website particularly useful, and when you're trying to do something really big, I'm not very good at thinking small. So like doing something big, like understanding how to manifest abundance and thinking with an abundant mindset. If you can kind of get yourself into that state of mind, then it's really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think I would have been where I am now if I hadn't started kind of going down that road.
When did you do that? Just out of interest, is that a really reasonably recent thing, or have you been doing it for a long time? The meditation and so on.
No, it was really just it was probably, I don't know, just under kind of 2 years ago, kind of post burnout. And I was like, oh, I really need to take care of myself. And so I did like a Calypso MOT, So check spiritual self, mental self, physical self, and like, let's get all of those things in order.
And you managed to form that habit reasonably easily then? Because again, if it's a significant change in your normal day, there's the famous quote, as everyone says, if you've not got 20 minutes to meditate, you probably need to do an hour, which I love, but it's hard.
Yeah, well, I think when you come a little bit unstuck in life, actually, like I had at that time, having structure and routine is really important.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was just a simple case of like, I'd write down, okay, what are my daily goals? What are my weekly goals? Daily goals, like drink, 2.5 liters of water, do 2,000, 10,000 steps, do half an hour of exercise, do a meditation. And then I just kind of go through and check myself off so I could hold myself accountable. And that helped keep the wheels on.
Right.
And then you kind of get into a regular routine and rhythm. And then it all, that helps, because I'm not a very routine person at all. I'm a little bit all over the shop, I think, most of the time. But when you have, regular routine, in place, it just really, it helps with your sanity. I think it helps,
I'm going to break with our routine
now
and do my pick of the week before I ask you to do yours, only because it couldn't be more appropriate. So I mentioned the yoga. My running tends to be pretty consistent. I've kind of, I'm not saying I've got it nailed, but I do tend to go out pretty regularly with that. Yoga, I'll go through phases where I'm doing it a lot and I really benefit. And every time I'm doing it consistently, I think, I really need to make sure I do this consistently all of the time. So I'm stealing this pick of the week from a podcast I listen to as well, and I've listened to for years, called Mac Break Weekly. So it's an unashamed theft, but it's an app called Habits, and it's kind of quite interesting because it's rewarding you in a really, really simple way for creating those habits. And what you do is you tell it what you'd like to do, and in my case, it's do yoga, and you give it a prompt, but it doesn't do all the horrible nagging like, have you done your yoga today? Have you done your yoga today? It's actually kind of build this virtual structure in the app. And that's your reward for doing it, is seeing how further on you are with building that structure. And I've only been using it for about a week now, but I have to say I'm really impressed. I think it's really, really good. And I think their view as well is just talking about the habit forming. It's 60 days typically. If you can keep that going for 60 days, then the habit should be pretty well formed. So we'll see. See how I get on.
Very cool. I must check that out.
Yeah. Habits. It's from a company called, it's Elon Musk's company that's the Boring Company. It's called Not Boring Company. So Not Boring Habits if you're looking on the App Store. We'll stick it on the screen. So yours, what pick of the week have you got for us, Calypso?
Well, since I've been talking about well-being so much, maybe I'll talk about subjects. Make a different recommendation.
Okay.
So I need to be able to disengage my brain a bit. So and the rare moments where I have an opportunity to chill out, I occasionally like to watch the odd film or two. And but one series I've been particularly impressed with lately is something called Ripley, and which is a neo noir psychological thriller, and many people might have seen the film with Philip Seymour Hoffman, The Talented Mr. Ripley. So I guess it's like a different version of that story, and it's really quite dark. It's absolutely brilliant, and yeah, so it came out recently, and I have to admit I binge watched it back to back in one day.
Well, that says a lot. That says a lot. It must be good.
That's very good. Yeah, nice. Well, it's been such a delight speaking with you today. Thank you for inviting me on the show, and yeah, really look forward to inviting you to Fintech Fringe.
Absolutely, it's been my pleasure entirely, and thank you for sparing your time in what is clearly a really busy period.
Bless you. Thank you, Kieron.